Welcome to Cash is King. This is the place where we break down simple, practical strategies to keep your cash flow strong and your business thriving. Whether you're dealing with collections or just looking to level up your financial game, we've got tips and insights to help you succeed. Let's dive into today's topic.
Welcome back, everybody, to the deep dive. Today, we're going to try to get to the bottom of something that I think affects most people at some point in their lives, and that's debt collection.
Yeah.
But we're going to go a little bit deeper than just, dealing with those pesky bills, and we're going to look at the system itself.
Right.
And to do that, we're going to be looking at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau's latest report.
The CFPB.
Yeah, the CFPB.
You know them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This report really dives into the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act.
Okay.
The FDCPA for short.
I've heard of that.
And really, this sets the rules of the road for debt collectors. And we're hoping to uncover some potential pitfalls that you as a consumer might encounter when dealing with debt collectors, especially when it comes to medical and rental debt.
Right. And it's not just about, do you owe this money or don't you? It's also about whether the process itself is even fair.
Exactly.
And this is important now more than ever because consumer debt has reached a record $17.5 trillion.
Yeah, that's a big number.
It's a huge number.
Right.
And that includes everything from those credit cards that are, burning a hole in your pocket to student loans that just never seem to go away.
They never go away.
And the problem is, as that debt rises, so do attempts to collect it.
Okay, so let's start with something that I think will resonate with a lot of people listening, which is medical debt.
Mm-hmm.
The CFPB found that over half of the complaints they received about medical debt were from people who said, I don't even owe this money.
Yeah, it's crazy, right?
How is that even possible?
Well, it's complicated.
Yeah.
The CFPB found that there's this big communication breakdown between hospitals and insurance companies and debt collectors.
Okay.
So you can imagine, maybe you get a dentist bill that you thought was canceled, but then a few months later it ends up in collections.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, wait a minute. I thought we took care of this.
I've been there.
It's a mess.
So it's not even about the bill itself. It's the whole system that's kind of messed up.
Yeah, the system is really the problem here. And get this, when consumers do actually dispute these debts, the report shows that debt collectors often just close the accounts without even investigating.
Well, wouldn't that be a good thing, though? If they're
Wow.
closing the account, even if it's disputed, isn't that good for the consumer?
Well, not necessarily. Closing the account doesn't mean the issue just disappears.
Okay.
The debt might already be on their credit report,
Right.
which could make it harder to get a loan or even rent an apartment. And plus, it really raises the question, are some debt collectors pursuing debts that they know aren't even legit?
Yeah.
That's a problem.
That's shady.
Yeah.
Okay, well, speaking of unfair, the report also talks about these financial assistance programs that a lot of nonprofit hospitals are required to offer.
Right.
So these programs are supposed to help people who can't afford to pay their medical bills.
Yeah, it's federal law. They have to offer this assistance.
But the CFPB is finding this troubling trend that people are being pursued for debts that should have been covered under these programs.
It's like they're being punished for needing help.
Wait, so even if a hospital forgives a debt, it can still end up in collections?
Yeah, unfortunately, that's what's happening. The report actually highlights cases where forgiven hospital bills still ended up going to collections.
Wow.
And that's a potential legal violation under the FDCPA.
Okay.
Debt collectors aren't supposed to go after debts that aren't actually owed.
So what are the implications for someone who's dealing with medical debt right now?
Well, the biggest thing is to keep really good records of every single bill.
Okay.
Every interaction with your insurance company, any applications you make for financial assistance. That way you have proof if you need to challenge a debt.
God.
Don't be afraid to speak up.
Speak up for yourself.
Yeah.
What about all of these new medical payment products that we keep hearing about?
Well, yeah.
I mean, they sound helpful, on the surface, but are there some hidden dangers that we should be aware of?
Well, yeah, this is where things get a little worrisome when we start talking about the financialization of healthcare. A lot of these products are offered through partnerships between hospitals and financial institutions.
Okay.
And they might sound good at first, but they can actually lead to more aggressive debt collection tactics.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah, so the thing is, nonprofit hospitals have to follow these IRS regulations that are designed to protect patients.
Okay.
But By using these financial products, they're basically passing the debt off to someone else.
Oh.
So the hospital gets their money up front when you enroll in one of these products, but then it's the financial institution that's actually responsible for collecting the debt.
Okay.
And they aren't bound by the same IRS rules.
So it's like a loophole.
Exactly. It's a loophole. And it really raises concerns about transparency and oversight in the whole world of medical debt.
So they're outsourcing the problem, but the patient is the one who might end up getting squeezed.
You got it.
Not good.
Not good at all.
Okay, well, we've covered medical debt. We've talked about how the system can be confusing and how there are some potential pitfalls for consumers. But what about rental debt?
Oh yeah, rental debt is a whole other can of worms.
Let's open that can of worms after a quick break.
Sounds good.
It's mind-boggling how complicated this all is.
It really is.
And if you thought medical debt was a maze, just wait till we get to rental debt.
Oh yeah.
The CFPB has been flooded with complaints about rental debt since they started accepting them last August.
Yeah. It's become a real battleground out there, and one of the biggest issues is security deposits.
Oh, yeah.
You know that money you pay up front that's supposed to be returned to you when you move out.
Right, minus any, legitimate damages to the property.
Exactly. But the problem is, landlords are often withholding those deposits unfairly, or they're charging tenants for damages that they're not even responsible for.
Oh.
The report actually has a story about someone who went to court and won over an illegally withheld security deposit, but the debt collector still refused to remove the debt from their credit report.
So even a court order didn't help them. That's wild.
Yeah, it's crazy. And you can imagine the impact that has on your credit. You know, it could make it harder to rent another place or even get a car loan.
Oh, absolutely. It's like a vicious cycle.
It is. And it doesn't stop there. The CFPB found that landlords and debt collectors are also tacking on these junk fees for things that aren't even allowed under state law.
Like what kind of things?
Oh, you know, basic repairs, routine upkeep things that should be the landlord's responsibility.
Right.
But they're sneaking these fees into the rental agreements, so it's really important to read the fine print and understand what you're signing.
Oh, yeah. Always read the fine print.
And don't be afraid to push back if something seems off.
Knowledge is power.
Absolutely.
But even when you are informed, you've done your research, it still feels like the system is going to stack against you.
Yeah, it can feel that way.
The report even talked about this trend of financialization in the rental market with all of these new apps and services popping up.
It's really interesting how technology is changing everything.
It is.
On the surface, these services sound convenient. Paying your rent online, earning rewards points, even getting loans for security deposits.
But I bet there's a catch.
Often there is. The CFPB is finding that a lot of these services have hidden fees or make it really difficult to challenge fraudulent charges. Some landlords even complain about signing up for a service that was advertised as free only to be hit with fees later on.
Oh, no.
And imagine trying to fight that as an individual renter going up against a big company.
David and Goliath.
Exactly. And then on top of that, the report mentions these price-fixing allegations against companies that provide software for setting rental prices.
Wait, what?
Yeah. This is where things get really concerning because if companies are colluding to inflate rents, that's a huge problem.
Outrageous.
It is. And if those inflated rents then lead to unpaid bills, it puts renters at even greater risk of being subjected to unfair debt collection practices.
That's a domino effect.
Exactly. One shady practice leading to another.
And to make matters worse, the report found a lot of issues with debt verification in the rental market.
This is a big one. A lot of renters are having trouble getting debt collectors to actually verify rental debts.
Really?
They request documentation, they send letters, but often they get no response.
They're just left in limbo.
Yeah. Meanwhile, that unverified debt could be hurting their credit score.
That's terrifying.
Yeah.
It's like you're being held responsible for something without even knowing if it's legitimate.
The CFPB actually shared a complaint from someone who repeatedly requested debt validation but never got a response, and yet that debt remained on their credit report.
It's like a black hole of information.
It really is.
Well, this whole situation just highlights the need for greater transparency and accountability in the rental market.
Absolutely.
Renters need to be able to access information, and they need to be able to challenge debts that they believe are incorrect.
They do. It shouldn't be this difficult to prove that you don't owe something.
Right. The way the damages are charged is often so subjective and confusing. It's like a breeding ground for inaccurate collection notices.
It is.
The report even gave an example where someone paid for carpet damage directly to their property manager, but then they started getting collection letters for the same amount.
That's just adding insult to injury.
Talk about frustrated.
It's incredibly stressful, and it adds to the burden that people are already facing. It's like they're constantly fighting an uphill battle just to clear their name.
Well, this has been a really sobering look at the world of debt collection.
It has.
But hopefully, it's also been empowering for our listeners because knowledge is power.
Absolutely. The more you know about your rights and the system, the better equipped you'll be to protect yourself.
Wow, this deep dive has been really eye-opening.
It has.
It feels like navigating a minefield out there with all of these potential pitfalls
Yeah.
in both medical and rental debt.
It's definitely complex, but the good news is knowledge is power. The more you understand your rights and how the system works, the better equipped you'll be to protect yourself.
So where do we even begin? What's the first step to feeling less overwhelmed by all of this?
Well, I think the most important thing is to know that you have rights under the FDCPA.
Okay.
You have the right to dispute a debt, you have the right to request validation, and you even have the right to set limits on how a debt collector can contact you.
It's almost like they have to play by certain rules.
They do.
And we as consumers need to know what those rules are.
Exactly. And the CFPB website is a fantastic resource for that.
Right.
They have tons of information sample letters, clear explanations of your rights.
Right.
Don't be afraid to assert them.
And I'm guessing keeping good records is crucial too.
Oh, absolutely. Keep copies of every bill, every piece of correspondence, every agreement, anything related to your finances.
Okay.
That documentation can really be your saving grace if you need to challenge a debt.
They're like building your own defense file.
Exactly.
Just in case.
It's just in case. And specifically for medical debt, always explore those financial assistance options.
Right.
Many hospitals, especially nonprofits, have programs to help if you can't afford your bills.
Right.
Don't hesitate to ask.
It's better to ask and be told you don't qualify.
It is.
Than to just assume you don't and then end up struggling unnecessarily.
Exactly. And when it comes to renting, read every single word of your lease agreement.
Okay.
Know what you're agreeing to, including any fees or clauses about damages, and if something seems unfair or unclear, question it.
So it's almost like you have to become your own financial detective.
In a way, you do.
Wow.
But remember, even if you find yourself facing a debt collection situation, don't panic.
Okay.
Take a deep breath, know that you have options. The CFPB website is a great starting point, and there are also consumer advocacy groups and legal aid organizations that can provide guidance.
So it's not about living in fear of debt. It's about being informed and proactive.
That's the key takeaway here. And by being informed, you're not only protecting yourself, but you're also contributing to a fairer, more transparent marketplace for everyone.
That's a great point. So as financial products become even more woven into our lives, like we've seen with healthcare and housing, what can we do as consumers to push for greater accountability in the debt collection system?
That's the question, isn't it? How can we ensure that debt collection practices are fair and accurate?
Yeah.
It's something we all need to think about and engage with.
Well, thank you so much for diving deep with us today.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you feel empowered to navigate the world of debt with a little more confidence and a lot more knowledge.
Absolutely.
That's it for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.